In this module we're talking about another system, this time chaff tramlining. So this is a system where we're taking just the chaff with the weed seeds in that chaff and putting it on permanent tram lines. One of the main tools that growers are using to achieve this is a tool developed in Western Australia called the Chaff Deck, and it is now sold by Primary Sales in Western Australia. So the Chaff Deck is essentially two small conveyor belts that take the chaff from the sieves and place them on the tram lines. There is a couple of other systems around that growers have made themselves, but the Chaff Deck is a very good, robust system that a lot of growers are using to great success. The Chaff Deck is a medium sort of a cost. It comes in at between $12,000 and $18,000 depending on the make of harvester. Some harvesters take a bit more to fit a Chaff Deck to than others, and so the cost can vary a little bit between makes of harvester. So the Chaff Deck really is suited to controlled traffic farming where the harvester is going on the same tracks every year. We don't really see it having a big fit for farmers that aren't on a fully matched controlled traffic farming system. So once we've put all of that chaff on the tram lines, how do we seed the crop? Well, there's a range of systems out there. Some growers are just seeding the entire field, others are leaving the tram lines bare, and then some have disc modules just on the edge of the tram line so that some crop competition is achieved on those tram lines where the chaff is, and then by putting those disc modules towards the edges of those permanent tram lines, we're getting good crop establishment. Getting crop establishment right in the middle of a layer of chaff can be quite challenging. Another system that a grower in Esperance is using, Mark Wandel, he uses a system where there is a conveyor belt at 90 degrees to the harvester. What Mark is doing is putting the chaff just on one tram line. He always puts it on his western tram lines. He has north-south runs. He just puts the chaff on the western tram line. Mark's doing this because he has a 9.1 metre controlled traffic farming system, and so he figured that he really only wanted to have one weedy tram line rather than two every 9 metres. So the direction of the conveyor belt in this system can be changed so that the weed seeds can always be delivered on that western tram line. And this is just an image of what it can look like in autumn when we have a germination of weeds. In this case, that's volunteer canola germinating in Mark's paddocks where he has one weedy tram line. One of the benefits of these systems, which we haven't really measured much yet, is that we think that a lot of the weed seeds are actually just rotting in these tram lines, particularly where we get wet tram lines. And so we would think that when we put all of our weed seeds on the trams, we would see enormous weed populations on those trams. However, in general, farmers that have been using it find that they're not always seeing large weed populations in those tram lines. It can depend on whether there's been summer rain or not, but in a lot of situations we think that we're seeing quite a bit of rotting or just weeds germinating in the chaff and then dying because their roots never reach the soil. This is something we haven't measured yet. We will measure it in time, but it is an observation of the farmers that are using the system. If we look at the capital cost of the Chaff Deck, it can be $12,000 to $18,000, so $15,000 on average equates to a very low per hectare cost to run a Chaff Deck. There's no extra fuel costs, there's no burning costs, there's nothing to do after harvest, so a very cheap system to run. We do need to add that nutrient removal cost, which is just the chaff fraction, so it is just that cost of around about $2.25 per tonne of wheat harvested. So the Chaff Deck is one of the cheaper harvest weed seed control systems that is on the market. The pros and cons of chaff tramlining, well, as I said, it's low cost, there's nothing to do after harvest. It has been a reliable piece of machinery, the Chaff Deck. It's been well made and growers that are using it are finding very few troubles with it during harvest. It can help to maintain the tram lines, so where we have tram lines sinking and so on, or water running through the tram lines, putting residue there can be a benefit. There's low residue removal, and also there's a benefit in summer spraying where growers are finding they're not getting dust problems because they are driving on chaff. So a lot of benefits for the chaff tramlining system. And the negatives of chaff tramlining, well, the weed seeds are still in the paddock and they're still being sprayed with herbicide. So we still do have a selection pressure event. So ideally we would destroy all the weed seeds, but in this case we are leaving some in the paddock. We don't have a lot of science to understand what degree of seed decay we are getting, so that is a negative. Until we fully understand that, it's very hard to make a firm recommendation of this tool. The volunteer crop plants can need spraying. Most of the growers comment that they don't go and spray out the chaff tram lines individually. The only time they really find themselves doing that is if they have wheat in a barley crop or vice versa. But that can be an extra job that needs doing when that situation arises. And really it's for control traffic farmers only, and there's a limited number of farmers that are in a fully matched control traffic farming system. So the fit for chaff tram lining, well, it must be control traffic farmers. It really does suit all rainfall zones. We're not sure about the fit of sheep. We've had some farmers say that they end up with controlled traffic sheep when they have chaff tram lining. The sheep wander down the tram lines eating the feed that they find there. So it may be a positive for sheep, we don't know. But so far growers with sheep have been relatively positive about having sheep in the system with the chaff tram lining, but it's a wait and see at this stage. In summary, chaff tram lining, a cheap system, well suited to controlled traffic farming. There's nothing to do after harvest, and the machinery that's doing it is very reliable and fairly easy to fit for farmers that have bought the system. So I believe it has a real future. I believe that controlled traffic farming is going to be of great benefit for our soils, and I believe that the Chaff Deck or chaff tram lining is a great match for that system.